Another edition here of Getting There with Goss, where we talk about the career journeys of athletes, coaches, media members, business owners, and more from upstate New York. I feel like this is long overdue. I blame Tyler McComas over at Barrett Sports Media. This guy would have been higher on the list, but he killed it. Zach By out in Colorado. We're going to get to how that all happens and more. But first, Zach, for those who might not be familiar with you, let's go back to the start. A young version of Zach By, 6, 7, 8 years old. What do you want to be as a kid when you grew up? Where'd you grow up? And was that same dream job you wanted when you were 18?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So there's a lot there. When I was 6, 7 years old, I was obsessed with professional wrestling. Not just like I liked it. I was obsessed. And that's, guys, one of the reasons that, you and I had got along so well. One of the many reasons is that we connected on that. But I'm from Scotia. So I'm growing up in Scotia, New York. And I grew up without a television. I should say about the time I was 7, we no longer had a TV in the house. So I grew up literally like a kid from the late 1940s. I mean, even by the end of the 50s, most American households had a black and white TV. Like, we didn't even have that. Not that we could, couldn't go buy a TV, although, things were stressful financially for us as a family. At the time, a single mom raising 2 boys. My mom just didn't want the TV in the house. So I grew up listening to the radio, and I just fell in love with it. And, at first I fell in love with basketball. And radio was just something like, if I wanted to be stimulated, and wasn't reading or playing with toys, like if I wanted to be stimulated, like from a multimedia, like electronic source, like I was turning on the radio. So that was when John Sterling and Michael Kay were play-by-play and color partners on the radio side. I was listening to Coast to Coast AM late night, and quiet please. My 3-year-old's still up. So I was listening to political talk. I was falling in love with radio, and then falling in love with basketball at the same time, and eventually transitioned from my love for basketball to my love for radio, and unplugged the passion and work ethic that I had for basketball and just plugged it in a different outlet. So by the time I was 18, hitting a bunch of stuff here. By the time I was 18, I did kind of have it in the back of my mind. I wouldn't probably admit it out loud, but I knew even by 18, I was sitting in my car listening to Jim Rome on lunch. I mean, like I knew. Zach, look at you. That's a good memory, bro. Yeah, I was getting my emails read on Jim Rome show, and I remember Jim Rome said, "Do we get a affiliate in Schenectady? Why are we getting all these emails all of a sudden?" So yeah, I was falling in love with it. And so by the time I got in college, just a couple of years after 18, I kind of knew, like, I really wanted to try this and wanted to give it my best shot to get in the business.
And by the way, before we get the nasty emails or comments, that's not how you spell Schenectady. Zach summed it up for us on our visual side. That's how Romy used to pronounce it. I'm glad you remembered that story and shared that, because the jungle, man, was so different. It was so unique. It was that early time in sports radio on a national level, yep. And you were breaking through. You shared a lot there. I think we got to go to the college basketball side of it, because you're in a unique position in your life where, although you love sports, you have this opportunity to play college basketball at the next level.
Yeah. So I became maniacal with the game of basketball. I wanted to play it every day to have fun, but I wanted to work at it every day to get better. And those are two separate things. So I was busting my tail. To get better every single day. I was playing all the time. And it was like I never saw myself, some people say, like, I wanted to make it to the NBA or something like that. I never thought like that. It was, I wanted to be a really good high school basketball player for Scotia, and to play with my friends with that name across my chest, and hopefully work hard enough where I could play in college. And, only 3% of high school athletes get to play in college. Only 2% are getting a athletic scholarship. So I knew I wanted to do both of those things. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do the scholarship part. But I busted my tail for a long, long time. went to the Division III route my first year. Didn't have a great time out in Buffalo, New York at Hilbert College. Transferred to get re-recruited at Hudson Valley Community College, and ended up blossoming as an individual, and got a full scholarship offer from Brian Beery at the College of St.Rose, which was some of my best years of my life, and met my wife there, and was able to even parlay after I was done playing. Actually, I'll tell you a quick story. Okay. So I have this killer season at Hudson Valley. I set some school records. I was like nationally ranked rebounding and whatnot. So I'm going through the recruitment process, and I have maybe like 20 Division III schools recruiting me, but I had 2 Division II schools that were recruiting me that could potentially offer me scholarship. And that was Pfeiffer in Charlotte, North Carolina, and St. Rose. But Pfeiffer flew me down, and I'm on their campus, and I'm playing with their guys. I was there for 2 days, and they were showing me around campus. And guys, the coach is walking me around, and he said, and here's our communications building, and they showed me the studio inside, the campus radio studio, and I'm like, whoa, those are mics. It's the studio. I'm seeing like the board, and I didn't even know what it is. I'm just seeing it like Kanye in front of it, like these big boards, right? With all the and the Coach Davis at the time, he said, if you come to Pfeiffer, you could have your own show on campus radio, on the campus radio station. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And they offered me a scholarship, which was my dream come true. Then I go back to St. Rose, and they offer me a full scholarship. But my follow-up was, Pfeiffer said I could have my own campus radio show. And they got a coach said, let me get back to you. He gets back to me and says, they have a show at this campus radio station called Golden Knight Athletics. And the guy who has done it for the last 2 years is graduating. So there's going to be an open tryout. And they did not tell me that it was going to be mine. They said, you can try out, and we can put in a good word, but you got to go take it. And it was kind of like John Calipari, like when he says he recruits kids, he's like, I'm not guaranteeing playing time. Come here and you earn it. And if you do the right things, then you're going to get drafted, and everything's going to work out how you want. But I'm not going to promise you stuff. So, I even go back to the college recruitment process. Sports radio was still somewhere in there. And I ended up getting the show and having it for 3 years and getting hundreds of reps on a microphone before I even graduated college. So it was just awesome. So I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I had to tell that story because I still remember it like it was yesterday.
No, it's so important, especially for students who are trying to find ways, who are in that spot of being a college athlete, who might be nervous to ask the coach that's recruiting them about what their major is and what they're interested in. So many athletes are just so focused on playing time in the depth chart, and they don't think about what happens when you're a junior and a senior. So having those moments and being aware when you're taking those campus visits is so important. Now, you mentioned the on-air opportunity at the College of St. Rose. For those who don't know, there's no football program, and you're playing basketball. So because you are a college athlete, it limits the opportunities of what you're able to do, but you basically found your way to have those types of reps come for you.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I had that show for 3 years. I graduate, and you were just talking to potential kids who want to get in the business. The chances are no one's going to pay you to do the job that you want when you're getting started. That's not going to happen. Unless you have like some sort of Syracuse degree or an uncle in the business, you kind of grind your way. You often have to do things that you don't want to do to get where you want to go. So my first year, no one's going to pay me to be a broadcaster, be a sports broadcaster. So I went right back to St. Rose the first year after I graduated and asked them. At the time, we had just a play-by-play guy. His name was Chad. He had no partner. He talked to himself there for 2 hours on the air, and then he'd get on the bus with us. And so I kind of knew the dynamic. You got the equipment, you set it up yourself and do the broadcast yourself or whatever. And I asked, can I do color for free? I don't need to get paid. At the time, they might have even been paying our guy like $50 or $100 a game. So I knew I was not going to get paid, but I approached it like that. It actually took quite a bit of humility, because there I am walking back into the same gym where I was just a player. And now I'm going to jump on this broadcast and talk about the guys who were just my teammates, and that was humbling. You know what I mean? That's not how you picture it, but I just took it head on and was just like, again, like you talk about the humbling process of like being able to tell yourself, you think you can do this, but you've never done it. So slow down, admit that you're not that great, try to get better. So yeah, I called a year Division II basketball for free at my alma mater, and interning with Roger Weiland at the a TV station spring of my senior year. It wasn't too long after I graduated, maybe the first 2 years, me and Roger ended up sinking back as like a alternate, fill-in host on the old AM station that he used to work at. So those were my two first, like, I guess, on-air jobs, even though the money I was making was not any in the one department. And I think was maybe I don't even know. Guys, I swear to God, I don't remember it, but I might've done it for free in both of them, do the, fill-in stuff. I was just so hungry to get on the air. It was just like, whatever I got to do.
Rarely at the start of your career, and especially if you're sending out those resumes, no one's going to ask you how much you got paid when you're 19, 20, 22. They just see play-by-play, color commentator, Division II. All that stuff is so important. Now, just to add some context here for some people who might be listening in Colorado or outside of New York, you mentioned Roger Weiland, the Capital Region, upstate New York, knows him, but just add a little context there of who Roger is in the area, what his role was in the Albany area, and what that relationship became for you too.
Yeah, the relationship was everything. So I met Roger when I was, I think I was 20. It was my last year, or I think it was maybe going into my last year at St. Rose. It was in the summer. And this is you talking about a story I'll remember forever. It started with Brian Bury. I'm in Brian Bury's office, who's, a basketball legend, New York State Hall of Famer. He's my coach at St. Rose, who I love and appreciate more and more with every passing year. I'm sitting in his office. He's asking me about my plans and what, getting my ducks in a row, or whatever for my last year. And I said, I need an internship. That's what I really need. I need to, I want to be able to get in the workforce a little bit and taste it and, whatever. And while I'm sitting right there in front of him, he pulls out his cell phone, goes to his contacts, doesn't even say anything to me, picks up the phone in the office, calls Roger and says, "Hey, Roger, this is Brian Bury here at St. Rose." Says something. He goes, "Hey, I think I got a good one for you." And that was I will remember him saying that for the rest of my life. "I think I got a good one for you." And Roger says, "Yeah, I can put him in contact with me." I get into contact with Roger. I get the internship, and this is like 2000 and I guess like 9, 10. Man, I just would do anything for Roger. I just like, what do you need? I remember one day like there was some sort of dry cleaning mix up, and, the dry cleaning was on his porch at the house. And I'm like, I'll go get it. I'll go get it. You sure? Yes. Go get the dry cleaning. Just do anything, right, to try to, make an impression or whatever. So then by the second half of the internship, he starts letting me on the air to his radio show. Back at the old AM station, and so would sort of ask me questions when he had exhausted a topic, and he'd mix me in, and so that was great. And then I graduate and whatever, and then 2 years go by, I think, or maybe a year and a half. It was after I'd done a color for St. Rose for a year. The guy at UAlbany who had the color job left to go back to Syracuse to like work a different job or enter a different space or whatever, and Roger brings my name up to Brian DePasquale, the old sports information director from UAlbany. And the next thing I know, I have like a CD of me, talking on the, on the St. Rose broadcast. I give it to Brian DePasquale. We used to call it Diddy. And Roger has so much stroke, long tenured nature at the university. And he, can kind of have a big influence of who he wants to work with, and made it clear that he had, would like me as a partner. And next thing you know, after doing just 1 year of the Division II hoops call, I'm getting hired at the Division I level. There's only 350 of those nationwide. I'm getting hired on the hoops and football broadcast, which typically, even if you're in that space, you kind of have to work your way through some of the other sports till you get to those two in particular. And then at UAlbany, we had lacrosse in the spring. So it was just surreal. I think I was 23, 24 when I got the job, and I was getting paid. Guys was like, wait, they're going to like So like UAlbany men are going to go play at Syracuse, and I'm going to sit courtside with Roger, who's like the number one cheese in the market, sports director for the NBC affiliate. Like, I'm going to sit next to him at courtside, and you're going to pay me. I was like, this is insane. It was insane. So Roger really, is obviously means so much to the Capital Region, the footprint that he's made there, but his willingness to put me on, and guys, guys in this business can have serious egos who don't want to root for guys or won't help a guy, enable a guy to have success and sort of be a vessel for him. That's what Roger was for me. And that will always be a big deal for me.
And so many standouts in your career as well, getting to call March Madness games, the Peter Hooley shot, which is legendary in UAlbany hoops history, all these things, watching the progression of UAlbany football from a lower level FCS program to now playing in the best conference at the FCS level. You get to watch all that, like you said, get paid to do it as a Capital Region native, having all that happen is an incredible mark in your career. And what happens there locally in the Capital Region is changes start to happen because although you're working for the Fox affiliate, you then shift over to the ESPN radio affiliate and your roles start to change in this new space. And you get to combine both of these now as a voice for Great Dane Athletics and a talk show host. So take us through that transition from the Fox affiliate here locally to now the ESPN radio FM affiliate.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I had always wanted to get over to 104.5 team there in Albany. And, because that was the FM signal and, it just had more listenership. And Roger was, the deal had nothing to do with me. The station was trying to land Roger. And again, Roger wants to work with people who he's comfortable with and who he knows are going to work. And so bringing me on as a producer and organizing that show, on a day-to-day basis, he knew based on game prep and everything like that, we had worked together for years at that point. Roger and I called over 350 Division I sporting events for the University at Albany. I mean, it's crazy. And you kind of touched on some of it, calling games at Duke on the women's side, March Madness, Hooley shot, pushing the Florida Gators, in the tournament, all sorts of fun stuff. But it was the dream come true of I'm calling the games, and the games now are bought by UAlbany on this station. So it made it easier as a lubricant to bring over Roger, which made it as a lubricant to bring me over. So the next thing you know, that was just a dream come true, doing the 2-hour morning show. My name wasn't on the show or anything. It was Roger's show. I was definitively his sidekick. But getting those reps, with real listeners for the first time and getting feedback, no disrespect to the other place, but it was just a little bit more anonymous, and getting real feedback or having my friends say, hey, I heard you, man, you did sound pretty good. Like being able to be doing that with calling the games at UAlbany was because at the time, guys, I was doing substitute teaching in the day. I was, doing all sorts of stuff in the morning, filling shelves in grocery stores and all this stuff. I was doing that so I could be on the air and flexible in the evenings with UAlbany. But I got something more stable in the mornings that wouldn't interfere with my UAlbany stuff. It was just the best. It was the best.
Now, there's a question here about this travel, this eventual landing spot at 104.5, the team. That's great. I want to ask you this story. It's not to embarrass you, but I think it's a great lesson for younger broadcasters. There was another opportunity previous to the change with big board sports and everything else where 104.5, the team did reach out to you. And I think a younger version of Zach By might look back in this and say, maybe I should have made the jump. Do you know the story I'm referencing here with Armin and Levac? Okay. I think it's good for younger people to know that story. Yeah.
Well, are you talking about when Armin sort of brought me in and was like, hey, you want to come over here and start with the producer role?
Yes.
And I said, no.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was, oh my gosh, that was crazy. So Armin Williams, who changed my life, bringing me to Denver, he's once upon a time the program director at 104.5 The Team, who, again, admittedly, I wanted to go work over there, but the Albany games had the rights with the AM station. So it was either pick one or the other. And honestly, at the time I'm doing the games and Armin brings me in, he's new in the market. He said, hey, I'm feeling around the market, trying to see what younger guys that are in the business that I should be talking to, and maybe give them an opportunity over here. And you'd have to start from the bottom as a board op, but you knew kind of him bringing you into that meeting, like he's talking to you for a reason. Your name is somehow in front of him. So he's giving you a shot here. But it was the lowest level. It was like at the time, guys, I think it was, I don't know, maybe $9 an hour, $8 or $9 an hour. And I had to make a decision, be off air and come and be behind the scenes, start off as a board op at the station you want to be at, or continue to call the games for UAlbany. And at the time, being a Division I broadcaster at 25, 26 years old, that was a bigger deal. Plus, at the time there, I think during that period, I was getting paid, I think $200 per game. So like the difference of me like getting $200 a game or taking a job for off air for $9 an hour, I would be taking a sacrifice of my passion of being on the air and, financially. And, both of those things, it was just like, I couldn't believe I had to tell him, I'm like, Armin, I can't. I want to be here, but I can't. This is a conflict of interest and I'm choosing this other thing. I don't regret it, but I do think I will say this. Had I said yes to Armin, I probably would have, I would like to think, and this is me just being confident in myself and have a little bit of faith, but I would like to think if I had said yes then, maybe I would have got to where I eventually got just a little bit quicker, and instead of maybe 4 years later or something like that, maybe even 5 years later, whatever it was.
That's exactly why I asked that question, because some people will look at that and say like, okay, if I want to be a talk show host, maybe I got to go where the talk is. If I want to be a play-by-play guy, I got to go where the play-by-play is. And I think that story you told is going to hopefully teach somebody like, okay, if you've got one set mind and these are the opportunities, it's okay to roll with that. Just be understanding that some other things that you want to come later in your career might have a little bit of a pause button on there. It's a little bit of a pause button. I kind of like how I phrased that myself, because the opportunity comes in Denver. I loved sharing this story with you over those course of those few months, but share it with everyone else. Take us through how the Denver opportunity came.
It's crazy, it's crazy, and so much of life, dude, and this to be true. It's just like the right person believing you. Maybe the thing you thought was going to happen doesn't happen, but then it happens later and for a better reason or richer reason, whatever. So I had actually told my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, I said, when I graduated college, I'm like, I want to give this a real shot. I was working at a car dealership, guys, and I worked at the New Country Lexus for a year, first year after I graduated. And after doing that for about a year, I'm like, I want to do this other thing. And I told my then girlfriend, I said, like, I'm going to give it 10 years. I'm going to give it 10 freaking years. And slowly over 10 years, we just covered a lot of it. Like I'm like making headway, but never like some total game changer, major market, anything opportunity. It was just like kind of one step at a time and building some respectability in Albany. And that's what I was trying to do. I wasn't necessarily trying to get to a point where I'd be leaving Albany. I was trying to max out my opportunities in Albany so I could pay my bills doing all sports stuff and not have to do any of the extra stuff. And it was in year 9. This is crazy. Roger was out and he let me fill in solo, which is just interesting unto its own sense, because I think a lot of guys that are used to being the guy, when they're out, if their younger guy was like, hey, I want to go solo instead of going like a co-host, they may be like, who's this guy think he is? But Roger let me do it. And I had this, rant about Odell Beckham Jr. It was a time where I know you remember this well, he was doing proposing in the kicking net and trying to kick it, hits him in the face and, all this stuff. So I'm like, I had this segment, like, I'm done with Odell Beckham Jr. And I have this solo segment and I'm like, all right, let me send this. We had a consultant at the time named Rick Scott, and Rick had worked in different markets all over the country. And I had this demo and I sent it to him. And I said, because he was a consultant, I had his contact and was able to reach out and say, hey, do you mind giving this a listen and just tell me what you think? I'm just trying to get better. And that was truly what it was. And he sent me this thoughtful email back and, hey, you could do this, maybe think about that. But unbeknownst to me, he takes that demo and he passes it along to Armin Williams in Denver, who I had met maybe 3 years earlier in the story we just talked about. Armin hears it and is like, oh, this kid got better at open mic radio. Forget play-by-play. Like he's good at this. Maybe there'll be a good fit for him in that opening in Seattle to work with John Clayton, who just recently passed. Rest in peace, John Clayton. And they're like, yeah, they're looking for a producer and an on-air sidekick to work with him and do a 6 to 7 drive time morning show, kind of update show solo. And we know this dude can go solo. They weren't going to pay a second guy. And I could work with John. I had a break in the show, could produce his show and be on-air sidekick. So they bring me out. I interview. I had a really good experience. 2 weeks later, they offer me the freaking job. And I'm like, this is insane. It was Valentine's Day. And I hang up the phone and Armin calls me almost right away. And he said, did Seattle offer you the job yet? I said, yes. He said, oh, congratulations. And his quote was like one of those beery things saying, I got a good one, Roger. I'll remember this forever. He said, congratulations. Now I'm really going to muddy the waters. And I'm like, and I'm sitting in a firehouse on Central Ave buying roses for my wife from that fire station up there by like what's the Italian restaurant, Delmonico's, and I'm at the firehouse. He said, now I'm really going to muddy the waters. And I was just like, why would he just say that right now? And he said, hey, I haven't said anything for the last 2 weeks. I wanted to respect the Seattle process. He said, but ever since I passed your demo along to Seattle, I've listened to 200 demos to be Brandon Stokley's co-host. And he said, in the back of my mind, subconsciously, I'm weighing these other demos up against what I passed along to Seattle. And he's like, I think I made a mistake. He's like, your stuff is as good as the best of these guys. He's like, and I kind of know who you are. He's like, I want to fly you out to Denver and just have a conversation with you, have you meet Stoke. I was on a plane the next day. I met Stoke. We did 4 pretend segments behind the scenes. Didn't know it. Armin was listening through another board in another room. And about an hour later, he offers me the job with my name on it, a show with my name on it. And it was, dude, I just, I still can't believe the story when I tell it. And so I pick up the phone, I step out of the room, I called Seattle. And I said, I can't believe that I have to tell you this, Mike. It was Mike Salk there in Seattle. And I said, I can't take this job. I have this amazing opportunity in Denver. And he said, I knew you were going to call and tell me that. He's like, he goes, that is a better opportunity. He's like, your name's on the show. He's like, I'm pissed. He's like, I wish you were coming to Seattle, but he's like, go take that job in Denver, and kind of gave me like a salute almost. And it was just like, I can't believe this is happening. So like a lot of work, and you are uniquely qualified to talk about it, like just what it takes to get in media. It's a really tough job because so many people want to do it, and there's a new crop of college kids every year who want to do it. So after 9 years to have that dream come true of like, no, you don't have to work 4 jobs anymore. You don't have to do that anymore. You can just work this job, and it's full time. You have benefits, and it was just it changed our life, man. Changed our life.
I love hearing that story, man. I still get chills almost 5-6 years later. I remember my shout out to my buddy John Burt. I was standing there on the phone with you at his house with a 30 rack in my hand on a Friday night. And I'm like, holy hell, Zach, bye, man. This is unreal. Because this is stuff you dream of when you grow up in the sports radio and the industry, and knowing these markets and knowing these names. I do want to go back a little bit about the audition process there with Stokley, because when you've got the Seattle thing, I guess we can call it like in your back pocket, it's been offered, whatever it might be. Does that change your mindset during that audition process with Stokley? Because you are aware who he is, you were aware of the market, Armin. Did you feel more confident, more nervous? Like, what was that 4 shows like, having all this information weighing on you that this is changing your life no matter what happens here?
Dude, it was so crazy. It was one of the most stressful experiences of my life. I hung up the phone with Armin and listened to the fan nonstop. I don't know if I slept. I just was listening to the station all day long. On the way out there in the Uber, it was just I was like, let me try to get an understanding what Denver even is. Like, I didn't know Denver, Colorado from, whatever, a hole in the wall. So, but I will say this, there was a little bit of confidence because you referenced that Seattle thing. Like, I know I have a standing offer from Seattle. It was the same company. So it wasn't like one company was better than the other, which is really rare that 2 stations within the same company would be vying for the same guy. That's very unusual. So I was nervous as hell, because in my heart of hearts, bro, like, I knew that if Denver could work out, it would be so much better for a couple different things. I'd be working for Armin, who I already knew and had so much respect for. I'd be closer to the East Coast. That trip to Seattle when they flew me out there was just like, I remember it wiping me out. I was like, wow, you couldn't be further away from home, even though this is going to be your new home. The weather, when I came to Denver, it was the month of February and it was sunny and it was warm and it was not like I thought. When I thought of Colorado, I thought of snow, from like movies and stuff, not knowing. You get there and they're like, yeah, Colorado has 300 days of sunshine, like more than Miami, Florida. I'm going, whoa, this is like, and then you go to Seattle on my trip for Seattle, it was just drizzling, for 2-3 days. So I was just like, it's better weather. I don't care about the market size. Like Seattle's a little bit bigger of a market, but I'm like, this Denver has 4 pro teams. Seattle doesn't. Seattle doesn't have a basketball team. I'm a big basketball guy. So I knew in my heart of hearts, like if Denver could work out, like that would be the dream. So although there was a less pressure because I already had a standing offer, like I approached it as if I didn't, because I was like, I knew, like I said, in my heart that if Denver could work out, that would be a forever, that could be a forever stop. Where Seattle, maybe you'd say, maybe I can kill it here, work my way back east. With Denver, didn't have that feel.
When you first started hosting Brandon Stokley, you mentioned the shows were going well. Things felt good in that room together.
Yep.
That's not always the case for whatever situation is, whether it's your 2 buddies launching a podcast or you're working with a partner you've never met before. You've got different backgrounds. That early few months, few weeks, few shows can be difficult. How would you describe your relationship on the air with Brandon Stokley and how that's evolved to what it is now? And we're taping this in July of 2022.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, guys, well, first of all, we got along as human beings, hit the ground running from the day that we met. Stokley and I, he's 46. I'm 35. If you're younger, that might sound old, but if you're like, longstanding in the business, 35 and 46, you kind of, we have hosts that are, 55, 60. So we had some similar interest. That's what I'm trying to say. Because we're closer in age and because we shared a lot of the same interests, we both like to have cold pops. We both like to have cigars. We both like to gamble on sports. We both like to bust each other's balls. It's very locker roomish. And I'd say that so from a human standpoint, we hit the ground running. And then I say over the years, we went from co-hosts who were friends to almost like friends who are co-hosts. We were at July 4th with their family yesterday for a barbecue. 48 hours before, we were at the Coors Field together in a box together with both our families. So, and it totally comes through. We're the only show that hangs out outside of the show, and the natural chemistry and genuine relationship we have comes through. The number one thing I hear more than anything else, and there really is no second place, is your guys' chemistry. Your guys' chemistry. It sounds like it's 2 friends that have been hanging out for, a million years. And although that hasn't been the case, it has been almost 5.5 years of a lot of good times and stuff. And, the longer you go, you get to draw from references of, stuff that happened, on and off the air years ago. And you kind of get to recycle it, repackage it for new listeners. And it's just been great, man. His wife had just texted me this past week. So I sent him a picture from the parade, his son holding my son. His son's 18. And she was like, this is really rare for co-host to be like this. And it is, man. It's a special thing. Special thing.
That's so cool. It's amazing to see that come together and have that happen on the air and off the air. It feels so good for people who follow the show, listeners, everybody else. Because you're a student of sports talk radio, because you grew up with it, you've got to watch these changes over the last 20 to 25 years. Have you enjoyed the evolution of sports talk radio? Where do you feel like it is right now as an industry in 2022?
Oh, it's just changing. The thing I say, the only thing that stays the same about radio is that it's always changing, always. Whether that's styles and approaches or like fundamentally like more what we're seeing right now, between it used to be like a highway. Sports radio was like a highway. Owen, can you please be quiet? Daddy's working down here. Thank you. Sports radio was like a highway, And now I feel like it still is and can be, but it's got like just so many exits of like you're still on the road, but it's kind of a little bit different over here, and over here's like a little bit different. And with so many platforms, like that's in the past, like it used to be like you desperately wanted to work for the Fan here in Denver or the team in Albany, but now just with the spoken word has never been more popular than it is in 2022, which is crazy because we have more options than ever, but we're entering a million new spaces. We're having sports guys host podcasts that have nothing to do with sports. I started listening to Bill Simmons rewatchables, taking old movies and breaking them down. And it's like, wait, I'm listening to Bill Simmons talk about Stephen King's friggin' 1990 Misery film. Like, how did I get here? But it's just so, it used to be a whale and now it's octopus. It's got a million different, legs off of what it used to be. And I mean, look at what we're doing here now, right? You're working for yourself on your own platform, with sponsorship. I know a guy that too. I'm not going to say his name, but he's a younger guy in the business. I have a lot of respect for him and his work ethic, his work. And he lost his job recently. And instead of trying to go get a job at a different sports radio station, he's going full board into his already established YouTube channel. And it's just different. There's a host at one of the major stations in Dallas who just left his post to host his show on YouTube, but I'm a believer in that. I learned about this in college, like the concept of like the free marketplace of ideas. The best ideas are going to float to the top. The best shows are going to float to the top, whether you're a podcaster, a YouTuber, a traditional sports talk show host like me. Like if your stuff is banging, people are going to come back for quality content. And although the business is changing, I'm looking at it positively and proactively, with my own social media channels and, all that stuff. So the business it's crazy. It's just in a new space. You're hearing Draymond, talking about new media. It's different. It's new, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And I think a lot of people who are more traditionalists that have been around a long time who don't want to see a bat flip, maybe don't like, some of the change that's happening. Guys establishing their own platforms, Barstool, leading the way, Colin Cowherd with the Volume Network, Bill Simmons with the Ringer, all these, and what you're doing here, it's like, it's just in a new day. That's why I tell these guys, by the way, guys, like younger people who are like wanting to get in the business. I was over earlier today at the Colorado Media School, which is very similar to, I think it's the Albany School of Broadcasting, right? I don't know if that's still there.
Yep, it's still there.
Okay, so we have Colorado Media School, which I am an endorser of theirs through the radio station, so I read their commercials. But once a quarter, I'll go talk to their class, and I was there today. And one of the things I said is, there's no excuse. You can do whatever. Like, what do you want to do? You want to be a podcaster? Well, start your freaking podcast. Start your blog. Buy internet space. Be a vlogger. Have your own YouTube channel. Like, whatever you want to do, you can be doing it right now. So it's not like it used to be where you had to work your way to the microphone at the local, a sports talk station. Like, everyone walks around with microphones, and if your stuff is quality content, you're going to build a following. So, and by the way, we didn't even talk about this. Like when I graduated St. Rose and I was doing the stuff for free for St. Rose calling basketball games, I started my own website, buysline.com, and was blogging. I write a blog a day. I bought the internet space, $65 for the year, and that's why my Twitter name is still Buysline, because those are the roots of it. Like, it's like, no one's going to pay you to do what you want. So start doing it for free and do it at a high level. So eventually someone will take notice and you can get a couple bucks for your work. So there's no excuses anymore, for this generation, coming up, do what you want to do and do it at a high level.
That's usually how we close it out. The best advice to get where you are. You offered some awesome advice there. Anything else you want to add? Maybe if someone's listening in Scotia, as a student at the College of St.Rose, to add to more advice of what you would do to get to that spot in your career?
I would just try to emphasize that nothing will replace the work. Nothing will replace you being prepared and buttoned up. And, this is why still to this day, we've had the show Stokley and Zach for 5.5 years. I don't know however many shows, over 1,000 we've done. no one has ever done the rundown for me. I am the only host at the station who doesn't have the producer do their rundown. Like that doesn't make sense for me to have, a 24-year-old part-time kid, like creating the 3 hours of content. Put in the work, write out your teases, do your research about the topic you're going to talk about, so you have reference points, and people will notice. If you got your shit together, people will notice in a world of people who don't. So that would be my two things on the way out is just start doing the job. Like don't wait for anyone to hold your hand. Just start doing it. And nothing's going to replace the work. And I don't care how talented you are either. Like I hear guys that are talented and they're on the air, but they don't do the work. It's like, if you know, you know. So yeah, that's the bottom of the pyramid. Everything else it's predicated on, that base is just having some work ethic.
Zach Bye, I'm so happy, so proud, so honored to watch this whole thing happen, man. I'm so fired up for you. Keep crushing it out in Denver. Man, next time you're back in the Capital Region, you let me know. We got more stories to share and everything else. Keep crushing it, man. Best of luck to you and Stokley.
I really appreciate it. I miss talking wrestling, with you from time to time. Remember we had the As the Heel Turns, podcast that we, started
That's
there
right.
years ago. And I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing, guys. And, best of luck to you and your family and, continued growth and success, my man. I appreciate you having me on here, brother.
Thank you, my friend. We'll talk again soon. Take care.
See you guys.